So when you're married and in business, how do you communicate with one another? Today, we've got a couple that's been doing it for 45 years.
So thank you guys for being on. I'm so grateful for the connection because I absolutely love what you guys are doing. So why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about what y'all do.
You go first.
I'm Lisa Castro.
I'm Jaime Castro.
Also known as Jamie, so I don't confuse you. That's how he introduced his name to me back 45 years ago when we met. And so about us, I would say that in that 45 years, we've gone through so many seasons. And I'm a natural entrepreneur, and my husband was a police officer, police sergeant for many years, and he knew he wanted to be a police officer since he was in high school. And so I always said I would never marry a police officer. I can't imagine what that would be like. And then I married one. So you just never know where life can take you. And so we have been doing life together in so many different ways. And I've mostly done entrepreneurial type things my whole adult life. And he's been very supportive in all of those. And the last one, though, we did together, and that was 22 years that we were doing our business with health coaching. And we just made a transition to implementing what we've been doing within our coaching to on the side to be able to do it full time as marriage marriage coaching, I guess.
Yes,
by doing marriage retreats.
Correct. Perfect. Yeah, and that's why I was really excited when I got the introduction, because I think for us as married couples who run a business together, there are so many unique challenges that can kind of come up that can affect not only how you run a business, but also how you interact in your marriage. And so when I heard that you two are, running a business together and then created these marriage retreats out of kind of seeing those experiences, I was like, okay, yes, I want to talk about this.
Yeah, because entrepreneurship is hard in and of itself, and marriage is hard and comes with difficulties in and of itself. And put those two together, and now it's like a whole nother layer. And there are certainly a lot of great benefits to that we've seen and with everybody else we've talked to. But I think we mentioned in kind of our prep talk, like we've talked with couples who are really brand new in their marriage and in their business. And now to be able to speak with y'all, not only have gone through it yourself, but have led other people and other couples through that. I think it's a really great opportunity to see what y'all have to say about it.
Yeah, we came from a place of not being in a good point in our life, because I was actually dealing with lupus and Sjogren's and multiple autoimmune diseases, and I was not in a good place. I was living like victim mentality big time, just that woe's me, and I was doing a lot to myself. And then my husband would come home from work and he'd hear, you know what your kids did today? And here he'd just been dealing with things that he couldn't even share with me because they were so bad some days. And he'd go into the bedroom and shut himself in there to watch TV to chill. But I didn't get it. I mean, I was thinking he's coming home to rescue me. And at the time, I was dealing with the autoimmune as well as having a luxury real estate magazine that I ran from home. And so he was a support person in that business. But because of my health and he didn't understand what I was going through, I felt unloved. And so it was not in a good place. But what happened is when I got my health back by doing the same company that we coached to for 22 years, life totally changed. We actually renewed our vows 2 years later for our 25th anniversary, and we even wrote our own vows. And our mentor actually was the one that officiated the wedding, and he was a pastor as well as our mentor. And it was just a beautiful.
It was a good
transition. It was like a new start to our marriage, and it's just gotten better since.
And Jamie, where were you on the force at?
Oh, well, I had actually right around that time, I had received 2 promotions. One of them, I was considered a dark horse, so I didn't really think that was going to be possible. The one that I actually was looking for was being the head range firearms instructor for the city.
He was asking where was that?
I'm sorry, that was a place in Hillsboro, Oregon, is where that was at. So it was in the Northwest.
The suburb of Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, it's if you guys know where Nike Town, which is Beaverton, it's right next to it.
So that's where y'all originally met and then later moved down to Florida, or?
Well, we actually met at the college I was going to in Salem, and it was just a happenstance. I don't know that I was supposed to be on the campus, but I happened to be there, and I saw this nice looking, um, well, she's blonde now, but she was a little bit redhead, and so we met at the student union, and I think she was pulling my arm, but she's saying that she lost the contact, so that's why she wasn't playing up to her par. But
We're playing pool.
pool, excuse me.
Oh,
And so from there, we had an invite to go to racquetball. Yeah, racquetball, which I'd seen, but I had not I didn't know how to play it. And so we played on at the YMCA in Salem. I hit the ball, but I didn't know. I just knew that I had to hit the ball. I didn't know what else to do from there.
And then I started falling in like it with him right then and there because the way he handled, I was used to dating jocks, and he wasn't doing so great in that racquetball, but he'd be so kind and nice and get the ball for me, and just I'm like he's so respectful. And I remember walking out of the racquetball court, and my roommate from the college I was going to was in the other racquetball court with a guy and two guys, and that one that we'd met at this student union. And I came out of the racquetball court and he said, I said, I like that Jamie guy. And apparently in the locker room, one guy said to him, "You're going to marry Lisa."
Oh,
And 5.5 months later, we were married.
Yeah, I didn't really think that he knew what he was talking about. I guess he saw the chemistry, and maybe I just didn't. I had my eyes closed. I don't know.
so 5.5.
I was gonna say yeah.
Yeah, that 5.5 months is pretty. Like we planned our wedding in about 5 months, but we'd have been dating for
2
2
years.
years before that. So
We did it 2 months. If you want to learn how to do a marriage or a wedding in 2 months, let us know. We'll help you out. And we were broke on top of it.
Yeah,
oh yeah, well we were also in college, so it was
it was 1980. Not a whole lot of
Recession.
yeah. So we were blessed to have a community of friends, and her family that I think a whole lot of things were donated, and it was a good time.
Have you ever heard of Stone Soup? The story of Stone Soup?
nah.
Yes.
It's where they put the
Everybody
beggar comes
brings-
into a village and he's trying to get people to give him food, and they wouldn't. So he starts this pot of hot water and boiling in the middle of the town square and puts a stone in there. Soup tastes so good. And then, oh, but if it only had carrots in it, and if it only had and people started bringing things. And so it was, if we had this wedding, wouldn't it be great if we had flowers? And somebody said, "Hey, I've got some flowers. Hey, wouldn't it be great if I," and it's like, it ended up being, my mom says it's still her favorite wedding because everybody just came together. We had friends that sang, or my friend sang, and another one played the violin. And it's just, we started off in a beautiful way. I wanted to run down the aisle when I saw him.
Nice.
And it hasn't been that bliss the whole time, but I'll tell you that first day was very special.
I think anybody that's been married for any given time can say it's not bliss the entire time. You definitely have your ups and
I
your
don't know what
downs.
you're talking about.
If you know a couple that has had bliss their entire marriage, especially 45 years of it, let me know. I'd like to meet them.
Right.
Yeah, don't hold your breath on that one, Lisa.
Well, it rings true that when people say that they'll be married happily forever after, the other part is that they don't tell you is that well, the after is the rough part. So the truth is or actually the commitment is
Sickness and health.
working through those lean times, those times like when she was sick, and how well we show up to in those times.
We've learned a lot. We've had parents that have been married. My parents were married 67 years, and Jamie's parents, up until his dad died last year, was 67 years for them as well.
That's a great example.
Yeah, no, yeah.
They're a testimony of longevity.
Yeah. No matter
Yeah.
what.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So, coming through it all, and you both had kind of the separate careers there and being supportive of each other. But at what point did it happen, Jamie? Then you said, "Okay, I'm leaving the police force, and I'm going to work with Lisa." Was that kind of like part of your natural retirement after 20 some odd years, or?
Well, the transition to that wasn't like that. We had when we were looking at the coach business, Lisa was in a place where her health was, as she described, was not good. So
When we first started.
yeah, when we first started, and so I was kind of in the background, helping when I could on my days off, and it wasn't until what was it, about 4 years later,
Uh,
3.
3 years later, I didn't listen to something that Clinton Eastwood had said, man's got to know his limitations. So I was lifting the generator one time to put it on the back of my pickup truck, and I tore my shoulder.
Oh,
That was,
And his bicep.
and biceps. That was the loudest noise I've ever heard. And in that time, basically in that nanosecond, my career had ended. And so throughout, from 2006 to 7, I was off for a year, and then eventually I had to retire out due to that. So the transition was from at that point is learning to support a client, and to me it was a learning curve because the folks that I used to talk to didn't necessarily want to talk to me.
As a police officer.
So in essence, I had a captivated audience.
Handcuffs.
Yeah. And so now I had to, well, I didn't have to. The desire was to learn how to connect with people and find out what was important in their lives and help them find what was important to them, and then help them achieve that.
yeah.
So when we had talked previously, you mentioned that the marriage retreat kind of naturally kind of flowed out of, as you're doing the coaching and building teams. And I kind of, what was like the identifying moment that kind of
sparked that idea.
Right,
Or
sparked this
like,
idea to do more
let's
of these
just bring
marriage
people
retreats. Yeah.
into our house.
Yeah, well, into our house, that was a little bit later on. But what I was doing is when we were mentoring coach couples, and there's a lot of coaches that work together as couples. One might be full-time employed like Jamie was for a while, or some they are able to give up their jobs and work together full-time like we were able to eventually do. And we noticed the same pattern in them as we were experiencing. Like I was doing the business first, and he comes in and it's like, I'm thinking he should be able to join me right where I'm at because, he's been watching, so he should be able to do the same things. And I was expecting, I felt like I had unmet expectations. And then what would happen, resentment would build, or I would say, why aren't you doing this? Or couldn't you do that? And I didn't handle it well. I was not speaking to him in a way that had him wanting to do our business. It was more like, fine, if I can't do it right, then I'll just not do it. And I would use those stories, when we got past that, I'd use those stories to talk to coaches. Is maybe this going on? And I would describe the scenario of Jamie and I, and they go, how did you know? And it's like, I would hear the same story over and over of how people were not communicating well in their business. It was hurting their marriage instead of helping their marriage. Like when we got involved in our business, it helped our relationship because we desired to do it. And it was really important for personal development because the mentor for us said, your business cannot outgrow your personal development. And so we focused on growing individually so that we'd be better with each other. And so I started seeing more of a pattern. And one of the couples is way early on, we were talking and they were really having a rough time. And so we talked for about 2 hours. This was even before Zoom. And there was tears shed and things like that. But on the other side of it, I found out 20 years later, no, not 20 years later, 10 years later, when they were celebrating their 20-year anniversary, they were renewing their vows in front of a bunch of friends. And the husband turned to me and said, Lisa, but you don't know about that call. Do you remember that? He says, do you remember that call? And I said, yeah, I do. And he says, what you didn't know is I was going to ask my wife for a divorce after that call. And that call changed his mind. So that was the start. And then it was over and over and over that was happening. And one time I had a Zoom call with a couple and they were not doing well together, and ended up inviting them on to coaches where I worked with them and developing their marriage. And we ended up going to a retreat. It was a big one with 800 people. And Jamie and I went there with several other couples. We asked them if they wanted to go too. And it was good. It was helpful.
Mhm.
This couple didn't end up staying together. And I said, we need something.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, unfortunately. The other ones did, but this couple did not. And we thought we need something like more intense.
a little more meaty.
And so we ended up going to focus on the family Restore Hope. And that one was deeper. And there was and out in an environment where, how do I put it? We got away from the real world for a little while, for a few days. And that was helpful. And we'd already been having health coach retreats at our house, but not marriage retreats. And a lot of them would come. And so we've been doing retreats for years. Once we moved to Florida, you were asking if, what brought us to Florida. When we could afford to, because of the growth of our business, we were able to choose where we wanted to live. And I needed sunshine. And Valley of Oregon does not have a lot of sunshine in the summertime. And so when we came here,
It's just in the winter.
It's behind the clouds. Yeah, he says, oh, there's sunshine. It's behind the clouds, and behind the rain. And so we now divide our time. We spend most of our time in Florida, but we've traveled back to Oregon frequently. And we've had retreats at both locations, but most of them have been here. And we have fun in the sun. And we just converted some of the things we were doing with health coaches and then started saying, hey, how about retreats for marriages? And that we both got excited about. And that's when we went to that Restore Hope. And when we saw that it was taking people out of the environment, that made a big difference. And they gave us some tools that they knew we were going to be using to support our coaches. And then we developed it to be more in keeping with just some of the things that we learned. We took different elements from different things we've learned in life experience and created some communication tools. But we've learned that when they come into our house, we're trying to help them save cost by inviting them into our home. We learned that living together for a few days makes a huge difference. The couples are being recognized, the support of the group is being recognized, and just having an experience outside of their regular life. That bubble for a while lasts, but we always ask them to stay a day or two longer so they can practice some of the things that they're learning before they go back into the real world. And then we follow up with a couple of Zooms afterwards. And then we're working on developing strategies to help people beyond that, or if they can't stay at our house, or follow up for it to where we have groups where they can come together and learn some of the tools that we've been providing for coaches and beyond, for having better communication and ways to make decisions and how to come together when there's discord in a way that's productive.
So what would you say are some of the most common patterns that you see when it comes to these couples working in business together? I know you kind of talked about that one that kind of sparked off the whole thing, but what would be some of the other ones that are pretty common?
Well, I think sometimes when the men come in to help the wives, they have a certain way that they feel it should be, business should be run, and that doesn't always mesh with how the business actually goes. So there's usually the conflict, and Lisa talked about communication, and communicating in a way that both feel heard and understood. So that's one of the things is I think there's an assumption that I'm going to come in and I'm going to change the business and I'm going to make it, and it doesn't go well.
I know how to do it better.
Yeah,
and it could be the other way around too, but it's usually if it's the husband joining the wife a little bit later, or they're doing it together, whichever one, he's referring more to when the husband joins later on, what our experience has been. But there's also been the other way around, or they've started at the same time and they both have jobs. So it ends up looking different. But what I'd say the biggest thing is I'll take care of that later. A lot of procrastination of communication, or we'll figure that out later, or family. It's a big one. And especially when they're self-employed, family think, now that especially if you work from home, which is more and more common since COVID, you have time to do this and help us with that and take care of the grandkids or whatever. And they're realizing that they're learning to prioritize things. For us, it's God, then our marriage, and then family. So, and then business it's intertwined, but it's the
fourth rung on the ladder there.
Exactly. For us, although it's like, which comes first in a day, there's times when business is first. And then there's times when, for us, we actually, the way we divide our day is we both do our own thing in the morning. And Jamie's more of an introvert and I'm an what they call arbivert, the one that's in between it, introvert and
Amber.
ambivert. There we go.
Mhm.
And the other one be I love plants, I think.
Yes.
But I do that too. I love plants. But we have our personal time, our devotional time, and our prayer time separate, and our workout separate in the morning. And then we might stop to pray for things during the day. And in the evening, we hold hands as we fall asleep with praying before we go to sleep. So, and most of those times we're coming together to have communication as well. And it's like, we'll say, hey, there's this thing we're really working on and we're struggling with this. Hey, let's pray. And that's it literally is meetings throughout the day, or we'll go out to lunch and there's times when it's date and times when it's business over a meal. So we just kind of, the more frequently we talk, the more we can create an environment where it's easy going versus we build up, or brush something under the rug and then it blows up, which is what we probably do in the past. We never did any like yelling or cussing at each other like I've seen other couples do, but it was more like, I would say, my husband does not like conflict and I want to resolve things as soon as possible. And so it's the different personality styles, the different strengths that somebody has, recognizing that took me a long time to do that. And once I think when we were introduced to, this might be more answer than you want, so you can cut me off at any time. But we did something that we learned from our last business. It's called Strength Finders. It's you're familiar with it, Gallup, and that we use at every retreat, whether it's for health coaches or for marriages. And we just find it really helpful in the marriages because what we introduced in the beginning of the marriages, we're both individuals, and yet we are one. And so if we recognize that this is who I am, I'm futuristic with ideation, meaning I'm very visionary and creative, and Jamie's are harmony and responsibility. And so it's like, you think, oh man, how are we going to do this? And in reality, isn't that cool that we're so different? Yeah. So that we can mesh so well.
Complement each other, yeah.
Yeah, you bring in the uniqueness of those talents because Lisa, obviously you can see she's a communicator. I'm not that. And if you look at the Gallup, I think that is somewhere down at the bottom.
34 out of 34 communication.
But I also find that there is a need to communicate with people because, like for instance, yesterday I spoke to a couple that I've seen them before grabbing coffee and tea. And he looked at my shirt. My shirt said eat, drink, Oregon, because I'm a fan of the Oregon Ducks. And he says, is that gridiron or soccer field? I said, well, that's gridiron. And so I found out that this guy was from, I think it was New Zealand. And so I got to talking to him. And so when you communicate with people, you get to find out more about people. And when you actually look and focus on them, it's interesting the things that they say to you. And you find out quite a bit.
And I'm smiling because that wasn't his past self. He could not start up a conversation with somebody. He could spend the whole day not talking to a soul other than me and be totally good with that. And now I love how he is making connections. We just had time with a wonderful friend that he met at the gym. And apparently it was 3 years before he actually shared very much with her. And then he introduced her to me. And now we've just like.
Yeah. And the question I asked was, how are you doing? And she said, terrible.
Ooh.
And so I said, what makes your day terrible? And so it just generated a conversation.
You said something a while back where it was a Bible study you were doing or a devotion or something, and you said something about what it said about introverts.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember now exactly what it is. And some of us, I guess I'll go to the chase on this one. When we're introvert, people think that they're shy and that they have to be that way. The unfortunate thing about that is that when we do that, we deny ourselves the blessing of connecting with other people. And we use that more as an excuse because, we're introverts, we're not going to talk. Well, then there's a blessing we're missing in connecting with someone else. And
then, you're missing it from them. And then also it's really wonderful when they hear from you. I can't tell you how many times when he's not even in the room and somebody will say, oh, Jamie gave me that gold nugget, or it was so great. I was sitting all by myself and I was, having some hard time, and he spotted me and he came over and talked to me. And he does these, like, he's described as being stealth mode because he just seems to know where to gravitate to give somebody that one thing, that one golden nugget. And when it's really funny, my family, we're loud talkers and interrupters, and because that's a big family and that's the only way you got a word in edgewise. And his family called it cross talking. So he'd be quiet at these, at our dinners. And then if he did speak up, it was like crazy. Everybody just shut up. It's like E.F. Hutton is talking. And it's like, Jamie's talking. You gotta be, listen. Because he's like a man of little words. But then when he shares, he's bringing something of great value. And then I'm the opposite. I'll talk no matter what and hope to bring value.
Well, I know you've already brought some value here in just this conversation.
Yeah.
Now that you're kind of making this transition into fully focusing on marriage retreats and kind of broadening that reach, what would you say is like your biggest goal in doing that, or like the big hairy audacious goal, or kind of that unattainable vision, but it's still something that you're striving towards?
I'll speak for myself in regards to the purpose behind it. Is we have seen that marriages, the God-centered marriage especially, is the foundation for all aspects of life. And if that part's not good, it seems like it affects everything else. And that's why it was a business move at the beginning to do marriage retreats, but then the marriage retreats became what we want to create a business from, although we're going to treat it like we did our last business, where it's more like a ministry, but we just help the people, and hopefully that will help us pay the bills at the same time. Because when we focused on our last business of who could we help that's in front of us, it naturally grew, and we naturally created a really nice life for ourselves. And yet we have been doing these retreats in such a way that it's been more like a side thing, but it's become so valuable to people, and the outcomes of the marriages that have either improved, which are all of them, and then the ones that have been on the verge of divorce, they're still together, and they're probably the biggest preachers of marriage right now than any of the others, because it made such a great transformation. That how could we keep refining the curriculum, refining the way we do it, the way we show up, the way we improve our marriage? It's our incentive to keep growing in our marriage as well. And now how can we do it to where it's a big, audacious, hairy goal? Is one of the reasons we ended up selling our last business, is we felt like we wanted to be more focused on it, to where we could help more people through everywhere from retreats to where it's, it's a very small group. It's about 6 couples. And then all the way to doing workshops, to speaking at like marriage retreats, or even at marriage retreats, or even do ones like we went to, but a little bit more in depth and a little deeper. And then be able to do Zooms, group Zooms, where people are supporting each other, where we're learning the curriculum better. And I say curriculum like it's studying, but it's just, there's some tools that if you know how to use them well, and it becomes really natural to use. And the more it's practiced, the more it just becomes natural, and you don't need to even think of it as a tool anymore. It just becomes more just the way you communicate.
Right.
And so, we have what we call me talk, a we talk, and a team talk. And the me talk is like if there's some angst going on. It's like, instead of going, you know what you did wrong, there's like steps to it to begin with. And then it's more taught to begin with. And then we have some small steps that's basically pause. And I say pause and pray for the P. And then there's an E for emotions, and checking your emotions. And then the T is for your thoughts. What are your thoughts around the emotions? And then the last T is for take action. So it's either, okay, I realize I was the one turning up the volume. That's a filter that that's how my dad used to talk, and that's really set me off. It's not really what he's doing. So I recognize and have reflection is basically what that conversation is, self-reflection. And then at the end of it, I feel like, okay, it wasn't just me. This is something we need to talk about. Then we have a we talk. And I'll ask him for a time when we can make time to have this conversation, because this thing caused this feeling. And I'd love to be able to talk to you. When would you be available? And if he says not now, but I could at 2:00, my role is to be good with that. We'll talk at 2:00. And so at 2:00, it's more of a validation conversation. I was feeling this way, and he doesn't have to be in agreement with me, but it's like he's acknowledging how I felt. And there's steps that you take is so simple, but it's similar to what we learned at Focus on the Family. And I remember doing it there. And all of a sudden, the same thing that had come up multiple times in the past, when we got to that last part where he says, I think you said, thank you for sharing that with me. I can see how that'd make you feel. And I was ready to go with that next thing like I'd always done before, the former pattern, and it just stopped me in my tracks. I just needed to hear he understood, whether he agreed or not. And so it was a progressive thing there. And then there's something called a team talk that could follow. or might be a totally separate conversation, but it's when you want to make a decision together. And it would be a win-win scenario. And so that one we've incorporated more recently. That we had it before, but we've refined it more and more. And we actually been using it. And I was thrilled because there's this one discussion we were having over and over and we couldn't make a decision. And so I said, let's pull out the sheet. And we started going through it and asking ourselves the questions. And by the time we were done, it's like, he's doing this, I'm doing this. And it was like, boom, boom, boom. And it's like, yes, this works. And so I love that part of things.
I think the key point is, as Lisa was pointing out, is that people feel seen, heard, and understood. Mm-hmm. And again, what she was saying, it's not to agree with the person or whatever. It's just helping them feel, oh, they understand what I'm saying. And that, well, I think you were quoting somebody else who said, when a person feels understood, then those walls of resistance will go down. Mm-hmm. And usually that will help diffuse, as she was saying, the pattern, and then get to a place where, okay, we're going to have a discussion. And then again, it's not necessarily to agree, but to understand what the person is feeling. Because sometimes...
Are you talking about the we talk or the team talk?
The we talk.
Oh, yeah.
When we, particularly with men, sometimes we just, if nothing's said, nothing's wrong. And
That's
we
true,
just
isn't
like,
it?
Okay, I'm okay with it, go. But sometimes ladies feel things deeper than men, and will be more vocal about it. Whereas we tend to get over things really fast. Boom, just go.
Or compartmentalize.
Yeah, compartmentalize them. And I know that ladies will, because we're built, men and women have different brains, as they say. They're charged all the time. And with for us, we have little things here, and none of them touch each other. And so we're okay with that, and don't mess with that, because that's just the way we are. But we do have, I guess, a responsibility to do everything we can to make sure that we communicate with our wives and recognize their feelings, recognize when things are wrong, because silence isn't golden. Silence sometimes can be the key to saying, hey, there's something not right. And we must, or I must do what I can to figure out what that is.
Yeah, when we were first married, I would like I figured if I went up to the room and I would sulk up there, he would definitely know what was wrong. Yeah. And I look back on some of the ways that I acted as a wife and just immature as a person. And I thought it was so mature. And I remember reading the book Love and Respect by, you guys, Emerson, what's his last name? Anyway, it's a wonderful book, and Jamie wouldn't even read it. And this was years ago. And I remember reading the book, and it was talking about how women want to be loved and men want to be respected. And the first part's talking about how men can act. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way he is. Yeah. And I'm like, and then I start reading the part about how women can be. And it's like, oh. And so the one finger pointing at him, the three others pointing back at me, I realized. And then it said something where it said, somebody has to be the mature one to stop the crazy cycle. Mm-hmm. And this is how mature I was. I said, I'll be the mature one, and I'll be the mature, I'll change the crazy cycle. So I started showing more respect, and then he started naturally being loving. And it was really weird, because then I started being more respectful, and then he started being more loving, and he didn't even read the book. So it started with me showing up differently. And that's one of the things that we do notice at the retreat too. There's one couple, if he heard this podcast, which he probably will, he was just not ready to receive what his wife was saying. And he would lecture her about what he wanted her to hear about him. And neither one of them were listening to each other. And by the time the retreat was over, what we end the retreats with is an individual time with each couple. And they were the last to leave. Everybody else was gone. And I thought, oh, this has been the toughest one yet. I don't know if we're really going to make that impact. And it was so cool. And we were doing all this talking, and I realized we need to pull out the we talk. a forum right then and there and talk it through. And all this talking we were doing ahead of time, all we did is do this quick conversation, and they let us record it on their phone because I wanted them to know they had control over it. And it was beautiful. The realization, it was just, I don't know how to describe it. 5 minutes later, boom. And they left with tears and hugs, and they are preaching it and telling everybody all about it. And it's just beautiful. And I'm talking to the wife frequently, and they've been able to do some things on their house when they wouldn't have been able to even work together before. And so and they're making an impact with their kids, and they're putting their marriage ahead of their kids, which is a real common one as well, where the couples are so busy taking care of the kids and their careers that by the time the kids leave and it's empty nest time, it's like, who are you?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure.
And so that's whether you're working together or not, that ends up happening.
Oh, yeah.
It's a common mistake that parents make. I call it living vicariously through your children.
Mm-hmm.
We want to give them all the love and whatever that is, but then when children become number one, and even our business over our spouse, then that creates a kind of like a chasm, and it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, totally agree.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
One of the things that you were asking, there are some commonalities. Well, that kids, when somebody's old enough and they've got kids that are grown, they let their kids manipulate them because they want to see the grandkids.
Oh,
Mm.
Yeah, they'll use them as a almost like a hostage situation.
If you want to see the grandkids, then you can't behave like that. And that's a hard one. But the biggest one I would say is when they're in business together is the communication and taking time to communicate it instead of assuming the other one knows what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big one. Something we like to ask every couple on these podcasts, and I think what would be like one piece of advice you would give a married couple who is thinking about going into business together?
That's a good one.
No, it's a lot of years of experience to try and to distill down into one big thing.
Yeah.
But
For me, I would say probably give each other grace and be flexible, because in the journeys there are going to be some things that will require that. It's been said, if we want grace given to us, we must give grace. And flexibility, there was a term. What was that term about being flexible?
Those with the most flexibility have the best chance of success. When we get rigid, that it has to be our way, that's when conflict happens. I would say being in agreement, not one dragging the other one. Because we waited 4 years to sell our business because we weren't in agreement on whether to sell it. I was the one that wanted to sell it because I wanted to create something new. And my husband wanted what was familiar. And we love our community, but it's like, why can't we have both? This is giving us a way to transition to do both at the same time, work with still some of the coaches as with marriage retreats. And also I'm doing purpose coaching on top of that. And so I can still be involved in their lives in other ways. But it was hard because I actually got to admit that I got frustrated with him that he wasn't on the same page, but I didn't feel like I could move forward unless he was. And I'm really glad I waited, because the fact that we're doing it at the same time, instead of it being like, come on, Jamie, let's do, it's more like, hey, we get to do. So how are you feeling about making this transition to the next phase of your life?
Optimistically hopeful.
When we were talking earlier, you said that you were feeling somewhat anxious.
Well, we're going into the unknown. So a door that's an opportunity, and let's see where that goes, because we have we've proven through the retreats that we've had that our efforts have helped others.
It made a definite difference. And then that's where how our strengths are different. His is about responsibility and harmony, and it's like, this is the unknown in a way, because we were just doing it along with our other business, and now it's the future. And because of my strength as being futuristic and ideation, I already have it all like planned out, but having that conversation of now that we're ready to do this full on, how to make that strategic plan that we're going to be doing it on a scaling, what do you call it? Upscaling?
yeah,
What we've been doing, but doing it on a larger basis. And so I look forward to strategizing that and getting to the point where we can really enjoy it. But we've dialed in the retreats themselves, for dialing in the curriculum, and I cannot wait to see how we can spread it to more and more people. So thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Very glad to have you.